All right, let's talk a little bit of a strategy here regarding the Copa v. Wright contempt coming up here and potential offers that I'm getting to, join the other team. So, all right, so check it out. We got the contempt hearing coming up on the 18th and 19th. Looks like it is happening. There's been no reference to the docket as to what Dr. Wright has done regarding his filings yet. So I'm unable to see if he's responded, filed a motion, disqualification. Now, in my interpretation of reading the rules, the case, the approved judgment, and the fact that the Court of Appeal judge, he refused to accept the filing, Dr. Wright has no remedy to the Supreme Court. That's the way I'm seeing it. So for those who are championing that, I think it would take a little, I encourage you to read the rules a little further. And it looks to me like there is no remedy to the Supreme Court for Dr. Wright on the Copa case. So, I would check that. Ultimately, the only remedy I'm seeing is a disqualification. So, we have basically the situation here where we've got Mellor, who has now released all this new information about discussions he had prior to the case about Bitcoin with Mr. Pierce, and Mr. Pierce's meetings, inviting him to the events, inviting him to the Copa event / Kippa event / IP events. He's changed. In fact, Mellor wrote a 4-page explanation on his approved judgment about these meetings. Now, it's clear that Copa thinks it's not a big deal. In fact, the approved judgment, the Copa Court of Appeal thinks it's not a big deal. Mellor thinks it's not a big deal. All right, fair enough. But what's a big deal is notice. It's called notice and opportunity due process. It's the fact that when something is going on, the judge has duty to give notice. Hey guys, I'm in the courtroom today. I see Mr. Pierce over there. He's taking notes with Hollonaut in the back. He's got his little laptop out. Hey, Mr. Pierce, how you been? How's the cats? How's Bitcoin? How's the price doing? How's BTC? Oh, by the way, Craig Wright, I want to let you know that Mr. Pierce and I, we've had a dinner together. He invited me to one of his Copa or IP events, and we had a good time there. We had a few drinks. And, we talked about Bitcoin a little bit. We didn't really talk about your case, but I'd already gotten your case at that point. But, we didn't talk about your case. So I just wanted to let you know, if you have any objection, raise it now. Craig Wright could then go to his attorney and say, let's see. You know what? I don't like the fact that he was meeting with Mr. Pierce. He's here in the courtroom. There could be some interesting things. He's a local guy. And, it's just too much for me. I don't want that closeness. It's too risky for me to decide at this point. Yep, I ask you to recuse. I object, Mellor. Go ahead and recuse your position and get somebody else in here for trial. All right, then they put the trial out and they continue the trial a week or two or whatever, or the next day, however long it takes to get a new judge in there. They get a new judge and they start the trial. That's it. That's how it works. It's called notice and opportunity. It's not the actual bias that matters. It's just the appearance of bias. The fact that Mellor just failed to disclose this information when it was happening. Because now in his approved judgment, he's saying very specifically that I saw Tufty in the courtroom. Hey, how you been, Tufty? Good to see you. Why didn't he stop? Remember, he stopped when he saw Dolores Cahill in the courtroom, and he said, ma'am, you can't be making those hand gestures in the courtroom at that time. Or a face or whatever mark he was saying. He specifically called her out during the trial. But during the trial, he's now said in his judgment that he recognized him in the courtroom. So he saw him in the courtroom. Oh, there's my friend, Mr. Pierce over there. How's he doing? But he didn't disclose the meetings that he had with him prior to that. Now, when a judge meets with people in the courtroom, outside the courtroom, I don't care if it's for freaking photo op outside where him and Mr. Pierce were taking that photo, or if it's for an actual, major meeting about Bitcoin. It's just a duty and an obligation to disclose that to the parties. That's the problem I'm seeing. That's a major issue. So now, when it comes to the Supreme Court, all right, a new issue would have to be brought forward. The issue of disqualification of Mellor. Now, this is a whole different angle I'm thinking about. Not about the whether Craig Wright's Satoshi. Not about, Copa, none of that stuff that's over with. He's already lost all that. That's done, all right? But the issue before the court coming up on the 18th, potentially is going to be whether or not Mellor is biased. And as a reasonable person standard, a person who's neither hypersensitive but neither complacent. This is the standard that must be shown. If that person comes forward, writes a declaration, observes all the facts, had personal knowledge and experience with these situations, boom, they bring it to the court. Craig Wright says, hey, look, here's a reasonable person standard. In fact, I have 700 other people as well that felt the same way, that were on a petition that, by the way, guess who had the petition taken down? Well, we know from the space that Mr. Pierce came onto the space and spoke to Scott, 369 BSV, and said, hey, you take that petition down right now or else. And guess who was in charge of the decision maker of change.org? Sloppy Jack Dorsey, the slob that goes around with that T-shirt, Satoshi, the same one everywhere. He never changes his clothes. The same guy, the beard down to here, and just he looks like a homeless guy. That guy. He's also the decision maker of Copa. That's what it says on their of change.org. So he's the decision maker there. So he has major influence. So all that had to happen was Mr. Pierce or somebody at Copa calls up Dorsey, hey, we got this petition down up there about getting Judge Mellor and the appeal judge investigated. You know what? This isn't good for us right now. We got 700 people already signed it. It's 800. It's going to 1,000. This thing's going viral. It was only in a couple days it was happening, right? It's going viral. Would you go ahead and take that down? Dorsey gets on the horn. Oh, these people? Dr. Wright, fake Toshi? Get rid of it. Delete. Gone. No explanation. No good cause. No, it's a fraud. It's malicious. It's against none of that. Just goodbye. See ya. Scott gets notice in an email saying that his thing is gone now. No reason. Well, that sure is convenient because you got the decision maker over there at change.org is the same person in charge of Copa, who founded Copa. So talk about now, an appearance of bias and swaying the whole opinion of things. Now the petition's gone. So, but the court still may have the opportunity to see all that as it's coming into court. We'll see what Dr. Wright's maneuvers are. But the strategy is, okay, I'm just saying the strategy. The case is over. Trial's done. The appeal's done. Supreme Court's done. That's all out. Forget it. It's out. But what's not out is the challenge of Mellor. Mellor, if Dr. Wright decides to challenge him, ball's in his court right now. If he does, and he's got the proper evidence to do it, then that goes before the court. Mellor then reviews that evidence, and then Mellor says, he jumps up and down in his chair and smoke starts boiling off of his head like this, he jumps 3 feet off of his chair and he says, and he starts screaming at the top of his lungs in the courtroom. That's usually what happens when the judge gets something like that in the court. Here you go, judge, you've been served. Then he has to deal with it. And he says, I'm not, whatever. He starts screaming and yelling, but then he's got to put it in writing and say, I'm not biased. And this is, whatever has to happen, he has to answer. He's got to answer. And then that answer has to be reviewed by another judge, another court, an appeal judge, a different courtroom has to look at it and say, well, let's look and see what happened here with Mellor. Mellor, did you disclose this stuff at the trial? No, he didn't. But later on, you said you did all that. You knew about all this stuff. Why didn't you tell Dr. Wright at the trial? Oh, I didn't think it was a big deal. Well, he obviously thinks it's a big deal. Dr. Wright doesn't like this stuff. He knows that Tufty hates this guy. He thinks he's, fake Toshi. And, he's calling him names. I mean, so, clearly he hates him. So, he thinks it's a big deal. Why didn't you disclose it? It's what the appeal judge could be saying. Well, I didn't know. Well, too bad. You should tell him. So that way he had the chance to recuse you if he wanted to. Now here we are months later, and he's finding out about all this because you never told him about it in advance. What the hell's going on? Oh, I'm not biased. It's not a matter of are you biased or not. It's not that. There is zero. Mellor cannot say I'm not biased. That doesn't matter. That's out the window. We don't care if he's biased. It doesn't even matter. It's the appearance. It's the lack of disclosure that is the problem. That's what at issue right now. And that's going to be I think it's going to be before the court, and that will go up on appeal. And that issue could go to the Supreme Court. All right. That issue could go to the Supreme Court, not the trial stuff. All right. That sucker's over. So that doesn't happen, then the contempt's going down on the 18th. I think that Craig Wright will probably be there. We'll see. If not, he'll definitely have his attorney there. One of the two, either he's going to be in person or he's going to have an attorney there. And we're going to do a space. Oh, I have a space tomorrow with N-Chain Global. Talk about the patents. This is Mr. Pierce's rival. He's always trying to get the patents revoked from N-Chain. And so we're going to talk about that tomorrow a little bit and go into, the N-Chain, the mighty N-Chain, this 800-pound gorilla. What are they all about? And I see these people on X, they're talking about Bitcoin saying, something about, what it was, I made a post. Anyways, Brett Banify said something, and I responded back, and I said, yeah, you don't really learn about Bitcoin until you get, it's nothing like being served a summons from a process server banging at your door, dropping papers on the fact saying, hey, you've been served, come into court. It's time to learn about Bitcoin and blockchain. And now it's like, oh man, what the hell's going on? Now it really wakes the person up or the company, whoever's doing it, to saying, what's going on with Bitcoin? What's going on with the blockchain? What's going on with N-Chain? Because I still hear these influencers out there, one of the guys I follow, Josh Petty. No, not Josh Petty. That's a different guy. Joshua Reed. And I really respect him. I think he's solid. I don't think he's at all bought and paid for. But he just doesn't understand the power of blockchain, Bitcoin, and N-Chain quite yet. He hasn't gone way down the rabbit hole. Once you actually go way deep, right? This is the Bitcoin. See, Bitcoin, not BTC, but Bitcoin is freedom's final frontier. Because once you go way down this rabbit hole and you finally see the deception from the Gavin Andreessen stuff, the whole fake Satoshi stuff, the Copa trial stuff, all the way down the rabbit hole, you start to realize, like, oh my gosh, this has all been suppressed. And you start to realize that, wait a second, it's all been patented, this one blockchain? And so you start to see all this stuff, but then you hear all this what's called the PSYOP, I would say a psychological operation news out there that are saying, oh, XRP is going to go to the moon, and it's going to be the banker's coin, and then JP Morgan's going to make their own coin, and BlackRock's going to do their own coin, and they're going to do their own blockchain and all that. It's like, okay, great. But see, those are all in violation of the N-Chain patents, dude. I'm sorry. And N-Chain's probably not going to be worried about saying, well, if a little guy who's got a little patent project or a little blockchain or a little thing, or maybe just it's kind of hard to find who's really in charge, I doubt they'll try to enforce it or sue them. But if a big whale like BlackRock or JP Morgan comes in and tries to do something and stepping on the intellectual property of N-Chain, I wouldn't doubt for a second that they would be served and saying, what are you guys doing? Do you do any research out there? You're smart. You got $1 billion, $1 trillion, you guys. You do no research and you just step all over people's property? What are you doing? So tomorrow we're going to talk about that. And then on the 17th, it looks like may have Rad TV. Supposedly they're in the Bitcoin space, Bitcoin blockchain BSV space. And I'm going to have to learn more about those guys on the 17th potentially. And then the 18th is going to be the contempt hearing. I'm planning on doing a live space about that at 8:30 a.m. on the 18th Pacific time and 8:30 a.m. the 19th, both days, to recap on what happens. That's going to be Pacific time. That'll be 4:30 UK right after the court gets out. We'll hear an update from either Scott or whether it's Rui or Riley Cyrus or somebody, whoever's reporting on the court case inside the courtroom there. I want to hear exactly what happens and find out if they take away Dr. Wright in shackles and tie him down to a bed and put needles in his arms and gag him and tag him, or not, because I don't think that's going to happen. But worst case scenario, you never know. I would imagine Mellor is extremely upset right now. Once he sees what's happening right now, he's probably furious. He's probably trolling some of these people on X, I would imagine at this point, trolling me. He's watched my videos, he said. So they'll probably watch this, and he's probably very upset, and he's going to take it all out on Dr. Wright. So my apologies to Dr. Wright for helping to fuel this fire, but at least it's entertaining. And, like I said, strategy-wise, it's not going to be the court case from Copa Wright that goes to the Supreme Court, but it's the potential disqualification of Mellor. That's up to Wright and see if he does it and if he knows how to do it. So, all right, that's it. 15-minute rant. Copa v. Wright. All right, hit the likes, hit the ones, dude. I'll see you at the top. This is Gavin.